Die Luftwaffe der Deutschen Demokratischen Republik rekrutiert, um die besten Pilotinnen Europas auszubilden. Mit einer der besten Flugschulen der Welt, der East German AROS. Mit den berühmtesten Piloten wie Bob Dickinson und Flogger. Mit den besten kampffähigen Flugzeugen, die MiG-23ML.
The MiG-23 was one of the first variable swept-wing aircraft that was a direct upgrade from the MiG-21. The MiG-21s were fast and agile, but there were several problems with the aircraft. The Sapphire 21 radar and its armaments really limited its range. So, they started working on a replacement for the MiG-21 in the early 60s. The new aircraft was required to have a better performance and range than the MiG-21, while carrying more capable avionics and weapons including Beyond Visual Range or BVR missiles. Inspired by the F-4 Phantom and the F-111, and after several prototypes and evaluations, there you have it. There are several models of the MiG-23 in the game. The first generation, which is the MiG-23M and the MF, the second generation, which is the MiG-23ML and the MLA, and the third generation, which is the MiG-23MLD. The most major differences are within their armaments and their flight performance. For now, we're going to exclude the ground attacker versions of the MiG-23s and focus more on the premium version, the MiG-23ML. And for now, let's talk about the armors and modules. Welcome to the Armor and Modular Protection Analysis, where we basically analyze the armors and modules inside of a vehicle. Today's aircraft is the MiG-23ML. As always, the first thing that we need to take a look at is the crew. This aircraft has only one pilot. The pilot can use ballistic computers across all its cannons and rockets, but not on its unguided bombs. This vehicle has a G-suit modification, 60 countermeasures including chaffs and flares, with the possibility of adding 12 additional large-caliber countermeasures, and an SBO-10 standard radar-worthy receiver, and the TP-23M IRST. The IRST is a nice addition to the aircraft with 2 scanning presets, and of course, 1 ACM mode. The first preset is 60 by 15 degrees, and the second one is 15 by 6 degrees wide scanning angles, with a 4 by 24 degrees ACM mode. And last but not least, the radar itself. The radar is the Sapphire 23ML. The Sapphire 23ML has no range preset, and only has 30 kilometers of range. It has both normal and MTI scan. All of the presets have 60 degree scanning angles. The normal mode has 60 degrees by 8 degrees and 60 degrees by 12 degrees scanning angles, and the MTI mode has 60 by 4 degrees scanning angles. I will remind you that both of the modes have IFF and can scan and track targets quite well. It's just that the IFF might be a slight issue. There is also a radar mode that has not been talked about that much. The look-down mode. You see, usually the radar scans of the MiG-23 are higher than the horizon, and you don't scan lower angles that much. The look-down mode, on the other hand, allows you to do it in lower angles. However, it is only available when you're going higher than 1800 meters of altitude relative to the ground, not sea level. The look-down mode, unlike the normal search and the MTI scan, has 30, 60, and 90 kilometers of range, and uses the same scan system and similar radar scanning presets as the normal radar search mode. The ACM mode of this radar consists of 4 by 24 degrees for the IRST, MTI scan, and normal radar search mode, and of course, the look-down mode, with the ACQ having 8 by 8 degrees radar scan. Overall, this radar gets a lot of bad reputation from players' experience. Maybe because in high altitudes, this just normally switches from MTI mode to look-down mode and messes with your radar lock. Or based on people's experience, it might be less reliable. But other than that, the radar, to my experience, did not feel that much different than top-tier radars and maintained a solid lock even the enemy was notching or going the same speed as the MiG-23. However, when it comes to firing radar-guided missiles while the enemy was going sideways, it was struggling to keep the track, so you have to watch out for that one as well. The radar's ACM mode is pretty nice, and it has a special lock range that can help you out to be more flexible with regards to locking the enemy. And of course, this vehicle does not have a helmet-mounted display. Not that if it needed it in the first place, but it does the job quite well. This aircraft has 5 self-sealing fuel tanks, 2 on the wings and 3 on the fuselage itself, with a possibility of adding an additional fuel tank under the main fuselage. With these fuel presets. The fuel presets are pretty nice on this aircraft, and with the additional fuel tank, it allows you to be more aggressive towards your afterburner usage, since the MiG-23 is not as fuel hungry as other aircrafts. And it is in fact quite eco-friendly. And speaking of its engines, it has an R35-300 engine, an extremely powerful and complex engine that has several features that must be mentioned. The engine might not be that great when it comes to acceleration at slow speeds, but it retains energy extremely well, and when you go beyond 700 km/h speeds, it starts to accelerate extremely violently, and it just does not want to stop at all. You have to stop it. The wing rip speed is 1470 km/h. You can make it go higher, but it is not recommended. And all of this with low fuel consumption makes it one of the best premiums to purchase in high ranks. At the end, you have the oil cooling system, traction of the control surfaces, and spars. Now let's get on with the armaments that this aircraft can carry. Let's start by looking at the ground weapons at our disposal. The S5K, S8KO, and S24B unguided rockets, suitable for destroying multiple ground targets. And for the bombs that this aircraft can carry, we have 16 OFAB-100, 4 FAB-250 M62, and 2 FAB-500, also in the M62 variant. And just in case if things went way too south, we can also use the KH-23M with Delta NG targeting pod, and the ZB-500 napalm bomb, just in case if any of those Viet Congs would make things worse. As for an extra, we can also use large caliber countermeasure pod worth of 12 chaffs and flares, and 5 minutes of extra fuel tanks. The ground ordnances are good enough to support you throughout the ground realistic battles. However, you must remember that this is a fighter. Now we will look at the main course of the meal, which will be the air-to-air ordnances of the MiG-23ML. We will start from the weakest and finish with the most capable, with the first one being the R13M1, one installed on each pylon. The story goes that the missile is based off of the template and blueprint of an AIM-9J, which was stolen by our contractors over South Korea, and was personally given to our CEO Sullivan M. Davis. After some evaluations such as increasing the range and its burner time, it was given the name R13M1. The next armaments will be the R23 series of missiles, installed on the outer pylons. These missiles come in 2 configurations, the semi-active radar-guided R-23R and the R-23T with the infrared seeker head. Both of these missiles can pull 20 Gs and have a quite nice range, alongside its nice explosive mass. The radar-guided R-23R is comparable to the E or D variant of the Sparrow with some minor differences. The infrared variant, on the other hand, is a missile that is activated quickly off the rail and has an all-aspect launch unlike the R-13M1, and will be an interesting missile to work around with. The R-23 series and the R-13M1 missiles have not been seen in common loadouts of the MiG-23ML pilots for a very long time, and we would advise you to consider switching to a more new and improved options, like the R-60M. The R-60M was the further development of the R-60 series of missiles domestically built by the Sullivan Avionics. After major improvements in the electronic compartment of the missile, more notably the improved flare resistance and infrared seeker with all-aspect fire, all of our modernized aircrafts are mounted with the new and improved R-60Ms. The range and its overall G-pull will give you the extra edge you need when fighting against other opponents. The good news is that this missile can be installed in pairs on each inner pylons, giving you 6 at maximum. The next and the final missiles on our list, the R-24 series of missiles installed on the outer pylons of the aircraft. Just like the R-23s, the R-24 series have 2 configurations, the semi-active radar-guided R-24R and R-24T with an infrared seeker head. The R-24 is a major improvement of the R-23 missiles. They pull much better and have a higher range, and the guidance kit will also have an additional IOG in line as well. The radar-guided variants are very good to use in head-on combat, and it can be hard to dodge for the enemies. And if they ever stay low, your radar-guided missiles will not work and crash into the ground. Rear aspect shots will also be something that this radar missile can do, although it will be more unreliable if the target is further away from you. Side aspect shots are something that is not recommended to do, as in this situation, it can be chaffed easily. The story with the R-24T, on the other hand, is different. Comparing to the R-60Ms, it is quite fast and it has a very large proxy fuse. However, it is still an infrared missile, and it can be flared. And top-tier pilots are more aware of those diamonds on their screen more than ever. Unfortunately, unlike the R-23 series of missiles, the R-24R and R-24T cannot be carried together, so you have to select both pods with one variant only. And finally, we have the cannons that come with our MiG-23ML, with a nose-mounted GSH-23L cannon alongside its 2 additional wing-mounted variants. The GSH-23 is a cannon that has a slow velocity. With a fair bit of practice, however, you can make it work, and can pack quite a lot of punch. Now let's move on to the next topic, the flight performance. The MiG-23 has several flight characteristics that must be mentioned. As you already know, the MiG-23 has a variable swept-wing design. This gives it several advantages during its combat. But in order for us to know how the sweep wing works, we need to know it in a little bit of more detail. As we said, the engine is incredible. The engine might not be that great when it comes to acceleration at slow speeds, but it retains energy extremely well. And when you go beyond 700 km/h speed, it starts to accelerate extremely violently, and you have to stop it from going above the speed of 1470 km/h. Of course, you can make it go higher, but it is not recommended. And even if you do rip your wings, you still have a very nice control on the plane, thanks to its flight model. Just make sure to not end up in a flat spin, and you're pretty much safe to return to the base. As it was mentioned on the beginning of the video, we have 3 generations of the MiG-23s. The MiG-23ML is a 2nd generation variant, but what are the differences really? For starters, the 1st generation of the MiG-23M and MF have a basic engine that does not allow them to have a great performance the 2nd generation MiG-23s have at high speeds, but still they maintain the energy quite well. And of course, it has a worse radar without the proper ACM, and we're going to use the R-23s instead of R-24s. The 2nd generations, such as the MiG-23ML and MLA, will have the upgraded engine and airframe that allows them to have fascinating speeds and limitless acceleration. And of course, the insane performance in high altitudes with much better energy retention. The improved radar with better scanning and proper ACM mode, and the ability to mount R-24 series of missiles. And finally, the 3rd generation, the MiG-23MLD. Take everything positive about the 2nd generation and give it an additional ability. You can turn much harder and allows you to put your nose on the target in compensation of losing more energy than your 2nd generation counterparts. You can actually see the difference in the motion picture above. The selection between the 2nd and 3rd generation of the MiG-23s are totally personal, but as always, all the options are on the table. Generally, your MiG-23ML's flight performance should be divided into 2 modes, the subsonic and supersonic performance. The subsonic flight performance allows you to push your aircraft to its limits and maximize your performance at dogfighting. Here's an introduction on how to do the procedures in the most proper way possible. Select the semi-auto wing sweep control and set the value to 0%. Switch to automatic wing sweep control, use takeoff flaps, and then press Change Radar/IRST mode to switch to MTI scan. Make sure to check its MTI mode by turning on radar and ACM mode, and then you are clear to take off. In supersonic flights, the MiG-23ML is incredibly fast and it can pull quite well and respond quite fast. In order to enter dogfight mode, you must be under Mach 0.95. Once you're under that speed, switch your wing sweep to semi-auto, and it should automatically sweep forward for maximum dogfighting experience. Now in this situation, the 2nd generation MiG-23ML will save its energy and not turn a lot, but the 3rd generation MLD would turn much better in exchange for its valuable energy. Doing negative Gs is possible, but it is not recommended, especially in aerialistic battles where instructor literally fiddles up with the flight model. And overall, the MiG-23ML is an incredible vehicle with an amazing flight performance. If you know how to make it work, you can be a big challenge to the enemy. Now let's get on with the game modes. This time with the MiG-23ML you have two types of matchmaking. The low tier where you have to face up against MiG-21s, F-4 Phantoms, F-5s, A-10, Su-25s, etc. And high tiers where you have the F-15, F-16s, Su-27s, and so on. When facing against low tier players, you can use your radar guided missiles with ease and not have a lot of problems. Since, for some reason, these people just don't understand how to avoid dangerous radar missiles. You can get easier kills with radar missiles, and in general, their situational awareness is right into the toilet. This does not mean that you will get tomatoes all the time. You can still get people that will wreck you so bad that you will forget what type of vehicle you were even playing. So be careful of those players. If you face up against the higher tier players, the real challenge begins in a rapid pace, and you can already feel it. Only the strongest or the most skillful will survive. Forget about bombing bases with the MiG-23ML, this thing demands you to keep fighting against other players. This is the time for you to test your skills on the battlefield. The F-15s and Gripens alongside the Su-27s will be a hard challenge, assuming that Gaijin does not increase their BR in the future. You need to be more careful of your surroundings when you dogfight, when you fire the radar-guided missiles or the IRST seeker head missiles, and overall you have to do more hard work to avoid the A9Ms at all costs. The fast pace of top tier will leave you devastated if you don't adapt. The players have so much awareness that even your R-24Ts will be useless because a lot of players will flare out other missiles coming towards their way. So watch out for that. When it comes to simulated battles, on the other hand, things get more interesting. When you first get into the simulated battles, you will be greeted with a mess of a cockpit with the worst roof you can possibly find in a Soviet aircraft. But hey, at least you have an incredible gun sight. If you somehow manage to fight with this huge chunk of metal that is on top of you, the MiG-23 is a very nice dogfighter, and the radar, despite having a limited range on the MTI, it can serve you really well, if you're fast enough. Just remember one thing, the radar can sometimes fool you into thinking that it's reliable with its IFF. So in a furball, the IFF can really get confused. And of course I got two friendly fires just like that, so watch out. This vehicle can ground pound, but as I said it before, this thing is best to be used at dogfighting. Just like in aerialistic battles when you're in low BR, this thing will be much more flexible and it can be really incredible to play with. On the other hand, the higher BRs will not show mercy. And you have to be fast most of the time, and you have to be heavily reliant on your radar and RWR. The MiG-23ML is a very great aircraft that might look old and cranky with the radar and overall design, but it will not disappoint you. At least, it did not disappoint me. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching, and special thanks to my friend Flogger for helping me out making the illustrations of the MiG-23. He makes amazing drawings of the aircrafts, and he does all of that by hand on a paper. It's not digitalized and not artificial at all. So if you'd like to support my friend, follow him on Instagram at planes_drawings_extravaganza. And ladies and gentlemen, this was pretty much it for today's video. If you liked this video, make sure to like it, subscribe to my channel, join the membership, or give a super thanks if you want. This is me, Bob Dickinson, and thank you for watching.